Welcome to the Latin Wealth Podcast, a podcast dedicated to educating the Latino community about entrepreneurship, investing, and business.
Yo, what's going on, Latin Wealth family? Welcome to another podcast episode to Wealth Wednesday. Very excited about today's episode. I know we say that about every episode, damn near, but look, this is going to be a very impactful conversation, and we're going to be speaking about something that is it's been kind of controversial. A lot of people have opinions about it, and we want to give you guys practical information about this specific topic. And we made a couple episodes about some of the recent power outages in Puerto Rico, and we made content about it. People had a lot to say, and so basically what we want to do is we wanted to bring somebody on this platform who is actively involved in the solution side of these problems and some of these challenges. All right, so I want to welcome Jason Negron, president of Batricity PR, on the podcast. How you doing today, man? Thank you for jumping on. We appreciate you.
Thanks for having me, Chris. Jeremiah, I appreciate it, man. Definitely looking forward to it.
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, let's jump into it. Before we jump into some of the challenges that we were speaking about in the beginning, we want to know a little bit about yourself. Your upbringing and like how you got into this space in this field.
So similar to Jeremiah, like I actually, my professional background is wealth management and finance. I spent a little over 7.5 years in wealth management and finance. I started with a mutual company, Northwestern Mutual, back in 2010-ish, going into 2011. So once I graduated from college, unfortunately, I graduated during the time of the Great Recession. So even with the degree, no one was hiring at the time. So it just so happened to be that one of my friends and colleagues at the time was the director of selection for Northwestern Mutual, and kind of asked me as a favor to be his first interview. He wanted to practice on me. And so I ended up meeting with him at the Northwestern Mutual office up in Harrisburg. And, John took me through his process and kind of, shared with me, the whole financial services, industry. And again, background history and psychology. And, from an academic standpoint, I didn't know anything about economics or finance or business. So, I was like, hey, a free lunch. That's kind of how I looked at it, right, at that time. And what was interesting was he asked me to take this personality assessment that they conduct with their advisors. And I ended up going through this assessment, and the director of chief development officer for the company, her name was Tina at the time. She ended up reaching out to me and saying, hey, would you mind coming into the office? We'd love to, kind of go over the personality assessment that we conducted on you. And here I'm like, sure. And I go in and I meet with her, and it blew me away that this woman that I've never met before was able to like describe me to a T, right? And so she's like, like discussing how I'm wired, my mindset. And, at that time, it's like, wow, like, this is pretty impressive. And then ended up meeting the managing partner at the time and one of the managing directors who was having a ton of success in the industry. And, they pretty much said, hey, we think you'd be a great fit for the firm, for the company. We'd love to teach you what we know. We think you'd be an asset for the Hispanic community, the African-American community as a minority. Would you be interested? I said, yeah, well, how much are you willing to pay? And they say, well, we'll give you a $4,000 bonus, and then it's commissions after that. So, it was hard, right? Because I had an opportunity that was about $70,000 that was being offered to me. And, I'm looking at $70,000 or $4,000, right? But when you're 25 years old, it was just one of those things where I ended up discussing it with my my mother, and she said, hey, like, if this opportunity presents itself now, right, for $70,000, but there's this other opportunity that's going to allow you the autonomy and freedom that you're looking for, maybe you should try that, right? Because you're still young, and focus on the things that, focus on something that, you'll be extremely passionate about. And fortunately for me, I had a mother like Janice, who was, I mean, she's my superwoman. She's the most, important person, in my life. Like, my mother was a police officer for 17 years and a judge for 12 years. She was the first Puerto Rican judge ever elected in Pennsylvania. So I'm super proud of her, and having her in my ears. I listened to her guidance, right? So I went with it, and I was like, well, I'll take this $4,000 and see what happens. And then I ended up getting introduced to my managing director. His name was Tim Mulroy. He's kind of a big deal at Northwestern Mutual and in the industry. And I remembered, and I want to share this story because I think it's important. At the time, he invites me into his office, and I'm sitting there and he's interviewing me, and I'm looking at just like the layout of his office, and the only thing he had on this massive desk was a Bible. And I'm not going to preach or anything like that, but I asked him because I was curious. I said, so I'm assuming you tithed. And he says, yes. And I said, how much did you tithe last year? And he said, 140, 140 grand. I said, you gave your church $140,000 last year. And he said, yeah. I said, so wait a second. You made $1.4 million last year. He said, I made 1.5. I probably should have given the church a little bit more. And this is 2010. So in that moment in York, Pennsylvania, right, like just in the center of the state of Pennsylvania, I'm listening to this 31-year-old man telling me that he made $1.5 million. And again, I said, I'm willing to learn and consume you and go through and just do anything you ask of me to understand what it is that you know. And that was it. And that was just kind of, that was ingrained in our culture to just go out there and chase people. Don't chase money, chase opportunities, chase clients. And then I ended up having, quote unquote success. I was a 100 lives producer, which, just like less than 1% in the industry are 100 lives producers. I did that consistently for about 7 years. About 3.5 years into my practice, opportunity presented itself to move with a competing firm closer to home. Tim had already moved out to Newport Beach, California, to become the general agent out there in Newport Beach, Cali. So, there was just some changing and transitioning happening within the leadership structure of the company. And so then I pivoted. I went to Mass Mutual. I was the managing partner of our local DBA in Lancaster, PA. Had about 25 advisors that I managed. Had a nice, successful personal practice, and just kind of like focused on building my business. So here I am. I'm dealing with running a practice, running a firm, overseeing and managing other advisors. And then in late 2016, my father, who is born and raised here in Puerto Rico, reached out to me and asked me if I would come out to Puerto Rico to help him get some clarity around a land dispute that he was having with our family's property in Orocovis. So Orocovis is in the center of the island. It's the heart of Puerto Rico. And at the time here I am, I'm in finance, custom suits, ties, like not even thinking anything of, coming to Puerto Rico. It never crossed my mind. And, my dad's asking me for a favor. So I come out, and he's so excited to share with me his upbringing, his story, our history, just the way that the Jibaros lived here, his way of life. Because my father spent the first 18 years of his life here in Puerto Rico, in Orocovis, between Villapa and Orocovis, and he never saw the ocean. The first time he saw the ocean, 27 miles away from the ocean, was when he was 18 years old. So, my dad is a true, authentic Jibaro. And he was so excited to show me the island. And I came out, and I remembered when we went to the land and we stood on this mountain overlooking the Caribbean and the Atlantic. And there was just like this instant change inside me, right? Where I was like, you spent all these years in finance, understanding wealth management and economics and money and the instruments that you leverage to do the right thing for your clients. And I was like, and maybe it was all meant for me to figure out a way to introduce those vehicles and those relationships to opportunities here. And then I reached out to a good friend of mine, and I said, "Hey, I know you're in renewable energy. I have 42 acres at the top of this mountain in Puerto Rico. Sun's out year round, wind. Who do you know in solar?" And he ended up introducing us to a couple of solar developers in New York and in Pennsylvania. And we ended up pretty much, going through the process of designing a 5.2 megawatt solar array system on my family's land. And what was interesting about that was being able to bring my uneducated father into these meetings, with these different developers who were offering him anywhere from $2,000 to $4,000 an acre to develop his land and to build this 5 megawatt system. And it was a significant system. It was a significant project. It would have been the second largest solar array on the island. And we spent about 9 months working on that, heading into the summer of 2017. And then we flew out with our partners in that summer, and we ended up meeting with PREPA, who was the local utility here on the island, to determine whether or not they would issue us a power purchasing agreement. And we were here 5 days before Irma. And then once Irma ended up being about 50 miles north of Puerto Rico and not hitting, we saw this other depression happening and forming out in the eastern part of the Atlantic. And it happened to be Maria. And then next thing you know, 3 weeks later, Maria hits and it changed everything. I remember the feeling of just completely being demoralized. Like, you have all this momentum that we're working on something that we know is going to completely change the lives of so many, so many Puerto Ricans, Americans, and my family. But my only concern was, I don't even know if my family is alive. I have no idea what's going on in their world. So it was a challenge, and in a weird way, Maria kind of created its own little hurricane for me personally. It made me kind of think about what I wanted to do for the rest of my life, right? If finance was truly it, my heart was no longer kind of connected to the industry. And I started to think about ways to pivot from finance when it made sense, right? Logical and economical sense, pivot from finance into the industry. And that's kind of what led me to the opportunity with Batricity, and to kind of oversee operations as the president of Batricity PR here in Puerto Rico. I made that decision 2 years ago, and I moved to Puerto Rico about 18 months ago. So I've been here for about 18 months, and so sorry for the long answer to my background and my history and what brought me here, but I mean that's really what ended up happening.
Jeremiah, I'm gonna let you.
Yeah, Chris.
Yeah, I was gonna say you're 100% right. I mean, look, usually we like to step in and like, okay, let me get a word in, but nah, bro, that was beautiful, well said. Thank you for sharing that, and I think you laid that out beautifully. Yeah. Thank you for that for sure. I would love for you to dive a little bit more into who Batricity is as a company.
Okay.
How long they've been around, and for the people that just don't know out there, let's lay it out for them.
Okay, so in essence, Batricity is a commercial and industrial scale battery storage solutions integrator. We kind of focus more in the CNI space. Don't spend too much time in the residential space, but we focus more on commercial and industrial. Anywhere from like 100 kWh up to 3 megawatts is kind of like our sweet spot. And what our team does is we essentially design, procure, and engineer battery storage systems, sourcing from our supply chain and our partners that spread anywhere from China to Taiwan, India, Japan, Canada, the United States, and what our team of engineers and the technical guys. So I mean that's really their area of expertise. They will design the inverter, the battery cells, the chemistry that is being used, and it will design the system that's needed for whatever the solar project is that we're attaching our BESS systems to. And then little history on Batricity. So my partner and our CEO, Travis, he started an EV charging back in 2015, 2016-ish. He was the individual who I mentioned that I ended up reaching out to about, that solar array on my dad's land. And he actually built the first EV charging station in Central PA in Lancaster at a mall there in Lancaster County at Park City Mall. And it was interesting because I remember when he called me, he would, hey, come check out my charging stations. And it was this interesting, massive charging station with a canopy, a solar array system, solar on top. And it had like this marketing screen where it was for advertisements, right? It was thinking of like a billboard on a screen, and that's pretty much how he got generated revenue for his charging station company. So he focused on that for 4 or 5 years. And back in like late 2021, they decided that after having some success and building out a little over 300 charging stations across 8 states, they wanted to transition into the battery storage solution space. That was kind of like the missing piece within renewables. It was that spoke that everyone was trying to figure out. It was very costly. The technology wasn't quite there. But fortunately for Travis and our team, we have individuals who are battery chemist experts, inverter experts, guys that do things anywhere from, in the ocean to outer space, super smart, nerdy, technical guys. And they decided that, they really wanted to focus on bringing, their intellectual property and technical acumen into the space as batteries from a battery storage standpoint. And then that's really how Batricity started, headquartered in Hershey. And then 2 years ago, Travis reaches out to me, says, "Hey, we're ready to make this move to Puerto Rico. You're the only person that I trust and believe in to help us make this happen and execute for us out there." And we wanted to open up a subsidiary of Batricity on the island. Would you be open to discussing that and seeing what that would look like? And I said, sure. Obviously I had a strong relationship with him. I kind of saw what he was doing, in the peripheral, and it made sense. And I was 38 years old, and I'm saying to myself, if I don't make this move now, when do I make it? Right? Like this is an opportunity to go have the type of impact we were pursuing before Maria and post Maria, right? But with the issues that the island was having with PREPA, the corruption within PREPA, that was the challenge. And then I felt like this was the right team to make this move and to come out here and execute with. And so that's what brought me here with Batricity, and that's kind of what we do. So in essence, we designed anywhere from like a 5 by 7 by 7 battery storage system up to like a 40-foot size shipping container solution. And our team of engineers will design the entire system, commission it, do everything that's required.
That's like, man, that's phenomenal. Especially for me, for a person that's in the engineering. Before finance, I was in the engineering side, so chemical engineering. So all that is like speaking to me, and now the nerd in me is like, I got nerd questions, but we'll talk offline because the nerd gets excited. You spoke on, well, there's 2 things. So the size, not being residential, a lot of people would say, oh, well, okay, so Jason doesn't really understand how we live in Puerto Rico. That's not true. But I'm just saying, like, okay, since it's not residential and you focus more on the commercial and industrial side of things, how is that going to help us here in Puerto Rico? That question, number one, and then maybe we roll into the corruption. History? Yeah, the corruption. Because PREPA, because I want to know, like, what is PREPA? Because we know what it is, but what is PREPA? What does that mean? The corruption, like all of that. So, like, how is Batricity? How is the focus on the commercial side? How would that help Puerto Rico? And then, like, what is the PREPA situation? How does that go? And we'll get into it.
So from a commercial standpoint, I mean, you have to think, right? Like, there's many industries here on the island, a lot of manufacturing, a lot of pharmaceuticals, and so for us, those industries, that's where Puerto Ricans are employed, right? So if Puerto Ricans are employed there, and that power goes out, then those individuals can't earn a living, right? And so when you're living here in Puerto Rico, especially like right now during hurricane season, we experience power outages regularly. Like right here in my apartment where I am in the heart of Condado, I deal with a power outage 2 or 3 times a week, roughly 2, 4, sometimes 7 hours, right? Where the generator is just running nonstop. So it's not that residential isn't important. It's super important. But for us, the way that our team is and just their expertise, if we design and build the systems that are the backup for manufacturing facilities, the municipalities, gas stations, convenience stores, supermarkets, right? That allows for Puerto Ricans to still have access to those essential needs, right? That the day-to-day needs that they have. There's a lot of battery companies in the residential space. So for us, it was, do we want to compete with other resi battery companies and solutions companies, or do we want to just kind of be like, one of a handful of commercial and industrial battery storage companies, right, who can bring real solutions in a timely manner, cost effective, right, while leveraging the Act 60 tax code to provide the right economics for the opportunity. So, but again, that was what brought us to Puerto Rico. Again, being here 18 months, natural transition of business. Sure. We ended up getting offered opportunities on new construction residential to develop a unique residential battery. So we have a residential battery that we've engineered and designed over the last couple months for some new construction, low income real estate that's being developed here on the island. So it's not that we're opposed to residential. It's just, we came here with the mindset of, hey, let's focus on C&I. There's a ton of individuals in the resi space. And then just through our partners and our EPC partners, a lot of them said, hey, we love your solutions. We love your lead time. We love how you guys go about, bringing the right solution to the table. Would you be open to some residential, storage systems? And we were, right, because they're smaller margins, but if we have 30 to 100 to 700 residential units being newly constructed, that's a real number, right? I mean, at the end of the day, it still has to math and it still has to pencil, right? We're here to make money in addition to providing a ton of the impact that we're providing. So, but also in the C&I space, it's one of those things where the majority of our EPC partners, that's where they focus as well. They do large solar generation. So when they're looking for battery storage solutions, it was easier based on the relationships that we had already cultivated to kind of focus on designing systems specifically for them. And that's kind of what our business model is.
No, and I want to walk through that because just the step process. We just spoke last week we were speaking about the Dominican Republic, and we laid out some things about how they could improve. And just what we spoke about, I laid out kind of some steps. It's exactly what you did, right? You said, hey, I'm going to come in and I'm going to ensure that the things that keep the country running, the things that keep you working, the things that produce for the country, we're going to focus on those. And then based on production increasing by, creating more efficiency on that, then you have the money to go and reinvest into alternative energy or doing things on the residential side. And then, right, so then you make more money overall. So it's just funny you said it. That's why I wanted you to tap on it, because we had just spoke about it. And this is a real life example of that, of how you came in, we focus on manufacturing, build that up to make sure you can be productive, and then you can go back and do those things. And it kind of speaks to PREPA a little bit.
It does 100%, right? And I'm not going to speak negatively on PREPA. I have an opinion, I have my thoughts, but at the end of the day, that doesn't solve the issue, right? It doesn't solve the issue to discuss them specifically, their challenges. LUMA right now is who's responsible for making sure that this island stays powered for the most part with PREPA, with Haneda. And they're doing the best that they can, considering what was ingrained on this island for over 75 to 100 years.
Speak to that, Jason. Speak to that.
But what's unique to that is Puerto Rico has a mandate, right? So Puerto Rico has a mandate to be completely renewable by 2050, right? So here we are, we're already halfway through 2024. In 6 months, right? It's 2025 or 25 years away from that mandate to be completely 100% renewable. It's the law. It's what the island has already decided it was going to do. So for us, it just made, again, economical and logical sense to be here, to be a piece of that puzzle, right? To help solve that and help them get to their goal of being completely renewable by 2050. So that's going to require everything from small residential to large, to large CNI, large microgrids. We do, we have projects with, anywhere from 20 to 30 megawatt systems that we're designing battery storage solutions for, community solar projects. So it's just there's a ton of opportunity to be here to take advantage of what the mandate of the island is, but there's still challenges, right? Puerto Rico, again, even as a Puerto Rican, mom and dad from here, although I was born in the States, it's one of those things where you have to embrace the island time. Island time is very real. It seems like there's a holiday every week where nothing's happening. You have to deal with the bureaucracy, on the island. You have to deal with the politics of the island. Right now, during an election year, you're dealing with the transition potentially of a new governor in the next 4 or 5 months. So things, it's like you can have a crazy ton of momentum, and then it just stops. And so it's you have to just stay focused and continue to find opportunities to keep the momentum, keep that needle moving forward. But Puerto Rico it's interesting, and it's an interesting place, just from the mindset, the culture, just how unfortunately, there's many stakeholders on the island who they'd rather speak at conferences and pontificate and have conversations instead of actually executing. And that's hard. It's hard for me because, don't get me wrong, I live a block away from the beach, and it's beautiful. I'm not here for that, right? Like I'm here to execute. I'm here to bring our team's solutions to the table. And so it's hard when you see other stakeholders going about their approach and their strategy, and it's like, I don't resonate with that. It's, if you're truly about having the impact that you say you want to have on the island, then execute. Don't talk about it. Right. Execute. Right. And so I don't want to spend too much time discussing PREPA, because we need PREPA. We need PREPA. We just, as a matter of fact, today we just got the permits issued from LUMA to start conducting a power study at a significant manufacturing facility. We've been working on this project since March, right? And here we are in July, and we're finally getting the permits to conduct the power study that is needed. But we're talking about a very significant project, a 4.35 megawatt system at one of the largest power electronics manufacturing companies in the world, and their facility here in Arecibo, right? So like, at the end of the day, like, LUMA is doing the best it can. Of course, they could do better, right? But we all can do better, and that includes companies like ours, like Batricity and other competitors. We need to focus on collaborating and bringing the nerds of our different teams together to tackle these problems, execute together, and not worry about how you fatten your pocket, right? It's the only thing that should matter are the 3.1 million Puerto Ricans that live on this island, right? Where the average median income is $21,000 and they're paying 31 cents a kilowatt for energy on an island where the power is constantly in and out. Right. So we have to fix that, work together, and that includes working with PREPA, LUMA, Genera, and just being a resource and advocating for them. And when they're having challenges and issues, just trying to figure out how to way to help them solve it.
Yeah, 100%. First off, we might need a part two because there's so many things I want to ask, man. I want to go into one thing that I want you to clarify is the Act 60 tax code for people that don't know about that. And then can we hone in and focus on LUMA a little bit more? And just, they get a bad rap, right? A lot of people, we see it all the time in the comments and online. I want you to speak to, some of the things that you mentioned, one of them, some of the other things that they're doing to help, right? Some of the,
Yeah, I mean, online warriors, online keyboard warriors and activists, right? Like, I don't get caught up in any of that, man. Like, at the end of the day, you can have an opinion online, right? But show me what you're doing to solve the problem.
Right. So I think not to cut you off. I think, for me being in this space, I take a look at it because it gives me an idea of like where people are thinking, like where they're coming from, and like what's needed as well, right?
And read those comments, right? And understand where they're coming from, because it's coming from a place of pain, and you want to have empathy for that. And I completely understand. But for me, like, I'm here every day. I live it every day. I experience it every day. And I have utility bills. Like, we're here to provide these types of solutions. And unfortunately, like, there's too many people with opinions, and they're not doing anything about it. And it's like, well, stop having an opinion on how it needs to be solved. Figure out a way to bring your expertise, bring your experience, bring your resources, bring your relationships to Puerto Rico. A lot of these opinions come from individuals who are Puerto Rican and proud to be Puerto Rican, but they're in the States. Well, so many opportunities here, right, for Puerto Ricans to come back home and to build something for their reasons. I'm not saying be a battery storage solutions integrator, but if you dabble in being, in being a chef in the culinary, arts, or being an artist or music or whatever it is that you dabble in, there's so many opportunities here, which goes to your first question, which is the Act 60 incentives. Being Puerto Rican is the personal reason for me being here. I love that I'm Puerto Rican. I love that my mom and my dad are Puerto Rican. I'm proud to be Puerto Rican. But if the economics didn't make sense to do business in Puerto Rico, I wouldn't be here for that, right? Puerto Rico and Act 60 and the incentives that they offer to companies to do business in Puerto Rico are very attractive from an economics and from a tax standpoint. So, for example, and I'm not like an accountant or I'm not an expert on Act 60, but based on how we're structured, if you run a business here on this island for 181 days and you're a bona fide resident on the island doing business for 181 days, your company falls under the Act 60 purview. Now, in that, your company pays 0% in federal taxes, 0% in capital gains, 0% in distribution taxes, right? 0% in earned income, and you have a fixed 4% corporate tax rate, right? Above $3 million for the first, I think it's the first 3 years of your business. So anything up to 3 million, it's 0% in capital gains, and then it's only 4% above that, right? And then after that 3 or 5 year mark, I forget what it is, it's just a fixed 4%. So individuals will criticize the gringo or the American that's coming here to take advantage of that tax code. Well, those individuals that are coming here to take advantage of that tax code, they're employing Puerto Ricans. They're providing jobs. They're creating jobs, right? So they're leveraging the tax code to employ local Puerto Ricans and give them an affordable wage to maintain their lifestyles, right? So there's criticisms of the act from a place of ignorance. They don't understand like like how it actually works and the requirements. Like I can't even like, and this again has nothing to do with what we're discussing, but I don't have the ability to vote, in this upcoming election, right? As a Puerto Rican, I had to give up my Pennsylvania residency to be a bona fide resident here in Puerto Rico. I have to pay certain local taxes, right, in the form of goods and services and things like that. And trust me, I see it. I went to Costco today. My Costco bill here in Puerto Rico is much different than the Costco bill that I had in Pennsylvania, right? So it's, because there's a difference in the taxes, right? You're paying 11.5% on goods and things like that, so it's a real number. So we're here for Act 60, right, to provide these solutions, but in the economics, of Act 60, we get to offer attractive solutions and best system proposals, right? We're not gouging our clients like some other of our competitors are. We're reverse engineering those numbers into our proposals to offer an attractive offering to our client that factors in our Act 60 status for green energy incentives, right? So, but Act 60 is applicable to so many industries, so many sectors, real estate. I don't think it's in specifically like in food and hospitality industry, but there's so many opportunities here. And then like on this island, depending on what industry that you're in, I mean, you can do things year round. If you get into agriculture, right, and here on this island, agriculture is a year round thing, right? Like some of the most fertile land in the country is here in Puerto Rico. And it's interesting coming from Lancaster County, like the home of the Amish, right? Like it's you can do many harvests. You can have multiple harvests a year in Puerto Rico, and there's things that grow here that don't grow anywhere else in the United States of America, right? So there's a lot of opportunities in agriculture and manufacturing and real estate and renewable energy, and it's just understanding how to take what your experience, your resources, and your team, and bring it here and figure out a way to offer real solutions and real opportunities.
This is just making me want to move back even sooner. I already told you, Jason,
don't hesitate, man. Don't hesitate.
We doing that. It's funny. I'm talking with Chris, and I said, "Listen, this is a real thing, man. Like everything that you spoke to. Just to sum it up, I'm not going to go any deeper, but just to say, hey, even if you're not Puerto Rican, obviously they say, like you said, lo gringo. They come and they do whatever. Got it. Everyone has their opinion on that. But I'm going to speak specifically, and I always say this, specifically to Puerto Ricans. If you're out here to the diaspora, wherever you're at, if you're in the United States, there's more of us outside of the island than there is home. I do believe, as you said, now is the time. We're giving our opinions. We're stating these things from Pennsylvania, from New York, from Connecticut, from Florida, right? I'm in California. Go back home. Like, it's time to take your talents and actually do what you're doing. As you said, like, we have all these opinions. We could have opinions of LUMA. I could have opinions of PREPA. I'm reserving those opinions because I don't live there currently. I have to go back, get integrated into it, and say, hey, I'm a chemical engineer and a finance person. How can I mix those things with Jason that's doing it? How do we bring all those together, right? Like, that's what I'm saying. Collaboration and creating a better future for Puerto Rico instead of just having the opinion and stating whatever you're stating. Get off the internet. I ask Chris, me and him talk all the time, and I say this all the time. Your opinion doesn't matter. Like, it's great to have one, but everyone has one. It's what are you doing that creates a legacy? What are you doing that creates that lasting impact that's actually means something versus me just stating, the corrupt politician. Yes, okay, cool. So maybe we need to vote and create something different. Maybe we need a different, whatever it is. Collaborate and let's create that. I think that's a big piece of what you said. You're speaking
on something, that I identify with it because what the most challenging and most frustrating part of being here is the criticism from my own community, my own people and their criticism, right? It was when I left finance. My friends, my family, Puerto Rican, right? Like none of them encouraged or advocated or supported my decision to leave finance. You're moving where? To Puerto Rico. What are you talking about? Right? I was criticized and ridiculed and judged by my own family for making the decision to make Puerto Rico my North Star, to make it my end game, to go all in, to burn the boats, literally burn the boats. And you realize that the ones that criticize and judge and have an opinion, your friends and family, they're doing it from a place of fear. They're doing it because they don't want to see you, quote unquote, fail. But like for me, it's like it's one life, right? Like I don't know how to fail. Like you don't leave a $250,000 practice like I left thinking about failing, right? Like it's easy for me, because I grinded and I worked my ass off in finance to put myself in a position that I put myself in as a managing partner for Mass Mutual, right? To get them to stroke me a six-figure check, signing bonus, and salary to make the move. Like as a Puerto Rican, super proud of that accomplishment, right? But I was missing something, and it was this calling, this urge, this desire to be here, to bring this, my mind, my brain, my ability to communicate and the relationships that I had developed and cultivated, to bring it here to the island, to figure out a way to solve major issues that our community is facing on a daily basis, right? So like the hardest thing is when your own people criticize you more than the outsider. And it's like you can have an opinion, but your opinion, like you said, Jeremiah, it's irrelevant. Like go do something about your opinion. Stop talking, stop pontificating, stop having, stop being a keyboard warrior. Like, go do something. We all offer something. Just go do it. And it's hard sometimes, because I get judged by my own people more than I do the outsiders. And that's crazy, even here in this industry. Like my relationships here that I have and with our EPC partners, what's interesting? The real ones, they're not Puerto Rican. They're not even Puerto Rican. I have a what is he? A Costa Rican Jew, a Venezuelan, and an African from London, right? Those are the guys that are making moves here in the space. The Puerto Ricans who are in the space, trust me, they're worried about themselves. They're worried about their own selfish interest. They're worried about their own pockets. They're worried about their own agenda. And that's the hardest thing is the ones who should care the most about solving these issues, they're the ones that care the least.
And I think that needed to be said. I think people need to hear that. That's a point that people need to hear, especially as we went through and we looked at the comments and we spoke to those things. And you saw me answering a lot of the comments, and you probably even saw me in the comments. I told them, "What your opinion's great. What are you going to do about it?"
Exactly.
Right. So it's like, hey, there's no hate or no shame or nothing, no shade on anybody I have or whatever. And my brothers that are there in the island in the space with Jason, now's the time. Maybe you see this and you take this as a pat on the back and to say, hey, let's collaborate. Because
exactly,
hey, if someone outside of us cares more about us and about the betterment of our island than us, it's a loss. Like it's not a win when us as Boricua, when we don't care about our own people. It's a hell.
It's sad, right? Because there's 9 million of us here on the island and in the States, right? When you look at Hispanics, right, 72 million across the country is the last number I thought I saw, 1.5 trillion dollars of purchasing power, a top 10 economy in the world, right? Like to me, when I think about, and this is the political thing, but I don't want to get too much into it or into the weeds. But when you think about like immigration reform, wouldn't the assimilation to being an American make more logical and economical sense, emotion and from an emotional standpoint, as a Mexican American, as a Honduran, as an Ecuadorian, as a Dominican, to assimilate into the American way of life here on this island where they can remain naturally who they are first, speaking Spanish first, get educated in the American way first, right? Like not to mention all of the job creation that can come from that, right? Like if create working visas here on this island employing immigrants from Latin America, Hispanic speaking countries, and allow them to assimilate naturally into the American way of life here on this island where the island needs rebuilt. And there's so many opportunities, right? So like, I don't like to think about that because that's not my fight. But to me, that's an easy fix.
No, and that makes perfect sense. I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about it, and we've said this several times, but like people coming from different countries, just an example of it, freaking Plaza Americas right there in San Juan, it's owned by a Mexican company. Most people don't know that. It's owned by a Mexican company. They own there and they own one in Houston. They're both Plaza Americas. Same company owns two different, and it's like, that's the thought process. What can you do? Go ahead, man.
Our culture does a good job at complaining. And yet, when you look at the Dominicans, when you look at the Cubans, when you look at the Mexicans, why is it that they're collaborating? They're working together. They're building things together. But then the Puerto Ricans, our own people, are the ones who are sitting there criticizing and complaining the most. When here, I live in Condado, like I said, the construction that is being done, Dominican-owned contractors. Dominicans are rebuilding the buildings here, the businesses here. Not many Puerto Ricans. Why? Maybe maybe you take for granted the status of being an American, right? As a Puerto Rican, but you want to complain. And I get it. I understand. I'm not saying that, we don't have issues or the frustrations that we have as a community aren't valid. They're extremely valid. That's not what I'm saying. It's we get to be Americans first as Puerto Ricans, and then we have other ethnic groups within the Hispanic community who fight and die for just the opportunity just to try to taste the American dream, and we ain't even chasing it as Puerto Ricans. And that's super disheartening and frustrating at times for me. Sorry, I don't mean to get like that deep.
No. I see Chris's face. It's funny because Chris hears this from me all the time. So when you hear it from somebody else, it's like, yo, this is real. Like, it's really like, and I know he knew it was real, but it was like hearing it from someone else, because that's my brother. So we talk all, we won't talk.
Matter of fact, tomorrow I'm going up to Orlando and Orocovis, right? Because I mentioned to you guys that I have a big farm up there. Is about 42 acres. But what we're looking at, we're taking a development team, African Americans, who relocated to Puerto Rico over the last 10 to 15 years, run a land development company here on the island, and do stuff from like asbestos removing and lead removing from the island and taking it off the island back to the States where it has to get processed, I guess. But they want to walk my land with me, right? Because we have different projects and that we're working on together. And they are right now in the process of negotiating 5 acres to develop 5 cabins, eco-friendly cabins on the land, right? African American owners and entrepreneurs. Like it baffles me, right? Like when you're here and you see what's not happening within our own community and the opportunities that are there in front of them, and they're just not taking advantage of it. And other ethnic groups are.
The discussion behind that would be, well, Lo Moreno, y'all been and taking, but see, that's the thing though. It's like, it's here for all of us. And don't like let's not come and say, Lo Moreno is coming and doing, it's like, no, we have to take advantage of what we have. We have to understand fully the complexity and the depth of what was established in the infrastructure there. Because if we make a comment about how bad it is or where we're at or however, whatever, you have to understand the way things were built previously in previous regimes. Now we're coming into a space where you have to try to repair that. Like you said, take Band-Aids and then piece together why, like there's all this stuff that you talked about. I mean, the corrosion of wiring and things from a century old infrastructure. There's all this stuff that's happening. And you gotta, if you don't sit and piece that together and understand that fully, then you'll make judgments and assertions that maybe aren't all the way there because you don't know the complexity of it. For you, it's just, I want to turn on the light switch and the light doesn't go on. That's right? That's your understanding of it.
Exactly.
But me, from a technical aspect, understanding everything it does to create a grid, everything that could possibly demand on an outdated grid that was never updated, like all these different things that aren't really fully understood by people. And I just want people to take the time a little bit. That's why you're here, bro, giving the knowledge, the complexity of things that's in the background. There's a lot that's in the background. It's not just turn on my lights and the lights and I have love for everybody. There's reporters. One of our brothers, Dean, comes on here every once in a while. He does show, like, I want people to see this and understand, let's work together for solutions. There are the problems, but if we bring the problems and we say, hey, how can we find these solutions together? How can we work together to eliminate or to lower the amount of blackouts there are daily? What can we do? What can we do from the consumer aspect? Hey, maybe we turn off the lights when we're not at home. If you're not in the room, maybe we turn those off for 5 hours. I don't know, whatever that is, but having actual practical things that we could do as a community to make things better versus just saying LUMA sucks, turn off the lights, right? Like that's what I'm saying. Like the focus of that.
I mean, you can say LUMA sucks, but at the end of the day, like, they're here, and they're doing what they have to do. And in my experience with them, things can take a little bit longer than you want, but I haven't had any specific issues with LUMA and my interactions and my dealings with them. They've been advocates of ours. It's just permits take long. The permits take long anywhere, though, right? Like, it just certain things just take longer here, just because, like I said, island time is a very real thing sometimes here.
100%. Is there anything that you wanted to hit on before we get out of here? I know you spoke about a lot. You said a lot in this conversation, but anything else that you want to? Oh, we definitely got to do a part 2 in person.
Hey, anytime you want to come, anytime. I mean, you let me know. No, I mean, I don't really have anything more to add. I would just say that I appreciate you guys having me on the call.
Sure.
And keep doing what you're doing. I remember when I came across, the video, and I connected with you, Jeremiah. Like, genuinely appreciated, like, what you guys were discussing, and it resonated with me. And I just, we need more Chris's and Jeremiah's doing what you guys are doing, having these conversations, getting it out to your audiences. Because it's important, and I think that just know I'm here. Like, if anyone in your community is interested in exploring any of these types of opportunities or having a conversation, like, don't hesitate. Feel free to pass along my contact information. I'm here to be a resource, to be a connector of nerds. That's what I do. I'm not a nerd, right? So I got to be around the nerds. I'm always the dumbest person in the room, but I'm in the room. I enjoy being in the room. So, like, at the end of the day, it's like I love just being a fly on the wall, being surrounded around brilliant men, and women, because there's a lot of amazing, brilliant women on this island doing amazing things as well. And I'll leave one thing I will add. From a STEM standpoint, from a science, technology, engineering and medicine, math standpoint, there's 70% of all Puerto Rican college graduates are STEM graduates, right? So it's not that there's not talent here to execute from a technical standpoint. Like, it is here. There's no incentive for them to stay here. They go to the States and take their intellectual property there. And what I'm trying to figure out a way is to find more of us to bring those companies here so that they can take advantage of Act 60 to employ those STEM graduates and preserve the talent on the island to help rebuild it for the next generation of Puerto Ricans, right? So, like, there's so much talent, so much opportunity. Use me as a resource. Don't hesitate. Willing to help out in any way I can, guys. Seriously.
Where can people reach out to you or find you if they do have questions and want to use you as a resource?
I mean, best way is probably my email, jason.negron, Negron, @batricity.com, BATRICITY. I mean, social media, LinkedIn, Jason, _W _Negron, Jason William Negron on LinkedIn. WhatsApp, whatever, Facebook, all the social media platforms.
Yeah. We'll link all that in the description of this podcast episode. And man, thank you once again. This is not going to be the last time we talk, man. We're
Yeah, let's
definitely
do
going
it
to do
again.
part two. We want to dive. I mean, look, I have questions written down. We're going to dive deeper. But man, thank you for your time, man. It really means the world to us. And
Thanks for having
Jeremiah, do
me.
you have anything else before we head here?
No, I'm just super appreciative of the time for Jason, you joining us, and we're gonna do part two, hopefully in person.
Yeah.
We'll tap in, man. Jason, we got a lot of stuff to work on. We already told you, so appreciate your
Hey,
time.
looking forward to it, guys. Hey, God bless. Talk soon, man. Be safe, guys.
Yep.
Thanks.
All right.